Hello, Gene Schwimmer here. Welcome to today's vlog. I'm going to start with some small items and then get into the main subject. And the first item I'm going to go to, of all places, Poland. But before I can talk about Poland, I just have to talk briefly about the recent British elections, the great victory of Boris Johnson, and the main issue, which was Brexit, Britain's desire to leave the European Union, or to be more accurate, the British people's desire to leave the European Union against the wishes of the Parliament, the majority of Parliament, who worked overtime to thwart the British people's desire to leave the European Union. Well, they just paid the price. But the important thing to understand about the European Union is that it's a project mainly of France and Germany. And well, first we have to remember Schwimmer's first law of geopolitics. If it involves France, then it's going to fail. If it's France's idea, if France is the motivating force behind the project, then it'll fail spectacularly. Definitely, it hasn't worked out with their plan. Well, who remembers that they even had their own plan for solving the Middle East Palestinian-Israeli problem? Nobody even remembers it. That says it all right there. And now we get to the European Union, which, as I said, is a project mainly of France and Germany. And the flaw in the European Union is that it would have been great, would still be great, as just a trading bloc, as a free trade zone. But the main forces behind the European Union, France and Germany, but especially France, in fact, you can almost say exclusively France, but almost entirely France, their goal was to create a large entity that would allow France to punch above its weight and be a rival to the United States. It should be obvious by now that the European Union is not going to be a serious rival to the United States. In fact, they are going to be quite busy just trying to keep the European Union together. England is about to leave. I predict at some point that Italy will leave, but I'm talking about Poland today because, well, here is the headline, put it up right here. Poland considering leaving the EU due to judicial reforms, Polish court. What is that all about? It's the same problem that the British were having with the European Union, is that it is trying to be a political entity, not just a trading bloc. You have this unelected bureaucracy in Brussels increasingly interfering in the internal affairs of the member countries, and that's what's going on with Poland. In Poland, as I understand it from this article, the Polish legislature passed a law allowing the firing of Polish judges if they put the ruling of the European court, the European Union court, above the rulings of the legislature of Poland. And the European Union is objecting to that because they want to make laws. They want their laws to supersede the laws of individual countries. And so Poland is considering leaving the European Union if the European Union attempts to enforce their objection, to punish Poland in some way for wanting to govern itself, to run its own affairs. So that's the first item. It's just something I mentioned because I have a big problem with the European Union. Well, first of all, I think it's a dumb idea, number one, at least as a political entity. And number two, I'm an American. I don't want this large super nation that they're trying to create to be a competitor to the United States. Certainly not somebody who is going to, for instance, dealing with Iran, that would have the power to get around the sanctions that we're putting on Iran to thwart our foreign policy. So congratulations to Poland. I hope you leave, and I hope Italy leaves, and I hope Greece leaves, and then I hope a whole bunch of other countries leave, and then I hope the whole project collapses. Now we're getting back to the United States. So next item, put it up here. CNN impeachment poll has bad news for Democrats. Support among Democrats drops by double digits. So this picks up on what I was talking about, I think only yesterday. And well, that's what happens when you get old. I can't even remember if it was only yesterday. I have trouble remembering what I had for, well, it's not that bad. I remember what I had for dinner last night. So there is some hope for me, at least in the short term. But as I had discussed before, the longer this impeachment circus, as I call it, goes on, the more the public turns against impeaching Donald Trump and removing him from office. And now it looks like it's dropping by double digits among Democrats. So you can imagine what the trend is among independents and especially Republicans. Well, with Republicans, there probably wasn't a trend because they were dead set against it, the vast majority of Republicans in the first place. But independents, if this is the trend among Democrats, then I would have to imagine that the trend is at least equal, if not greater, among independents. Next item, a focus group. I was just talking about how the trend is changing. Well, building on what I just said about the trend changing or increasing against impeachment even among Democrats, well, I also showed you the other day, no, I showed you yesterday, I remember clearly, my aging brain, that yesterday I showed you a video of a congresswoman, a Democratic congresswoman, one of these 31 Democrats that were elected for the first time in Trump-leaning districts, a videotape of a town hall, and her constituents, the people in that room, the audience, pushing back strongly, really very vocal about her announced intention to vote for the articles of impeachment that the House Judiciary Committee is drawing up, or may have already finished drawing up by the time I'm recording this. So building on that, focus group. These Obama/Trump voters are just Trump voters now. Saginaw, Michigan. So, and that congresswoman, the video that I showed you yesterday, she is a congresswoman from Michigan. So this is Michigan too, swing state, a state that usually goes Democratic, that Trump won just barely, but that he won. So Saginaw, Michigan. Some swing voters here who voted for Barack Obama and then Donald Trump are firmly in Trump's camp now, and they're sick of impeachment, as am I, you can probably tell. This was the biggest takeaway from our Engagius/FPG focus group last week, which included 10 voters who flipped from Obama in 2012 to Trump in 2016. Why Saginaw matters, and pay attention to this. Trump won Saginaw County by just over 1% in 2016, and Obama won by nearly 12% in 2012. That is quite a switch from the Democrats to the Republicans. I am optimistic, or if I am Donald Trump, I would be optimistic about Trump's chances in 2020 in Michigan. And I'm from Michigan, as I've mentioned in the past. I think the odds are pretty good that he's going to carry Michigan. Next item, this will be the last one before I get to my main subject, which is on this little piece of paper here. I've been talking occasionally in the past about how Trump, and I've even shared polls of how Trump is picking up support among black voters. I cited 2 polls in the past that showed him over 30% approval among black voters. I saw one earlier today, showed him at 27% approval, and now I'm going to show you a video. Just watch the video.
Growing up, black in America, you're told that you're supposed to just be a Democrat. So one day I asked myself, why am I a Democrat? And so I did the research of why I'm a Democrat, looked up what the Democrats were about, then I did research about what the Republicans were about, and I realized that I've never been a Democrat. Anything that I stand for, everything that I was raised, my beliefs, my thoughts, it's all towards the Republican Party. And so then whenever I got there, I was able to get rid of my TDS, my Trump derangement syndrome, and I was able to open up my eyes and actually listen to him and give him a chance. And you know, black people, we don't like to be stereotyped or penalized or placed in a category. So I'm like, if I'm doing that to him and I don't want that done to me, then who am I? So it just kind of put me in a different mind space.
And now on to the main topic for today, which is that, well, I saw Trump earlier today. He is getting some sense. He's taking some good advice he must have been given by, well, that's what I'm going to talk about. There were two possible procedures for a Senate trial if these articles of impeachment get sent over from the House. Number one is just to dismiss the whole case as soon as possible, or to acquit as soon as possible. Listen to the House prosecutors make their argument, then the President's counsel to make their argument, and then see if the votes are there. You only need 51 to vote to go ahead to have the final vote, which requires a 2/3 majority to actually convict Trump and remove him from office. That's one course. The other one, which is the one that Trump was talking about before, was to have Trump call witnesses to make his own case, to vindicate himself, to call the whistleblower, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, and even Adam Schiff. But he was advised by Trey Gowdy and Lindsey Graham that that would be a bad idea. I was tending towards what Trump had said originally, to have multiple witnesses, but after listening to Trey Gowdy and Lindsey Graham, I changed my mind, and it looks like Trump did too, because he said today, whatever the Senate decides, he's happy with it. If they want a quick trial, he's okay with that. If they want to let him call multiple witnesses, he's okay with that too. But Lindsey Graham, number one, made the point that this whole thing is a farce. It's, as I keep saying, and others have said, it's a circus, and the right course is not to dignify this farce with a full-blown trial and take it seriously. Just dismiss the whole thing as quickly as possible and just go, well, as Lindsey Graham said, well, the House made their case, they called their witnesses, and the Senate can decide based on what the House has produced. That, I think, is good advice. But getting on to Trey Gowdy, in case you don't know, because he's not as well known as Lindsey Graham, though he's been on TV quite a bit until he just retired in 2018. He was a representative in the House. He's also a former prosecutor, who never lost a case, a former prosecutor who won every case that he ever tried. So he is well worth listening to. And this was his advice to Donald Trump. Don't call any witnesses. He understands that Trump wants to be vindicated. He wants Hunter Biden and Joe Biden investigated, perhaps others as well. But Trey's very good advice, based on his experience and his successful track record as a prosecutor, was simply this: wait for the verdict. Wait for the verdict. Wait to be acquitted once the trial is over and the verdict is in. And this is the important point: nothing further can be done to you once it's over and done. That's the time to go after Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and the whistleblower and anybody else. And that's what Lindsey Graham has already said he's going to do, at least regarding the Bidens. When this is all over, he's going to look into Burisma. He's going to look into what the heck Hunter Biden was doing on the board of this corrupt gas company in Ukraine, when Hunter Biden, well, he was discharged from the Army, number one, for cocaine use, for drug use, number one. Number two, he knows nothing about the gas business. He has no experience in that at all. So what is he doing on that board? Of course, that needs to be investigated. Lindsey Graham said that he would, and he also said, which makes sense, leave it to the professionals. Let Senate committee take all the time necessary, hire investigators, hire an outside counsel to look into this. Let them do it instead of trying to vindicate yourself in a trial where your time would be limited and where, well, who knows what could happen. Why take a chance? Get the verdict first. Let the verdict be announced. Once you're acquitted, then you can say and do whatever you want, safe in the knowledge that nothing further can be done to you. You can go after them. They can no longer do anything to you. Again, that is the best advice. And from what I heard today from Donald Trump, that's the advice that he's taking. And since we're talking about advice, here is my advice to all of you. Thumbs up if you like this video. Share it with anybody you think would also like the video. Got any comments? Put them in the comments section below the video. You can also suggest topics you'd like me to cover, ask questions that you'd like me to answer. You can subscribe. I love getting subscribers, so subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. And finally, come back and see me again. I look forward to seeing all of you again, and until I do see all of you again, bye.